What do you really know about your investments and your financial advisor? Gary Cinderbrandt, a veteran advisor and founder of Better Path Training, has spent decades helping both financial advisors and their clients get it right when it matters most. Gary pulls back the curtain on the advisory world to reveal the truths, the gaps, and the opportunities that most people never hear about, but absolutely should. It's about more than money. It's about legacy, trust, and making sure the people you care about are in the right hands. Welcome to If the Public Only Knew. Now here's your host, Gary Cinderbrandt.
This is Gary Cinderbrandt. Welcome back to If the Public Only Knew. And today we have a really special guest, Shawn Nelson, CEO of the Lovesac Company, which is quite a story that hopefully he's going to share with us. I learned more about furniture, Shawn, in the past week or so, researching everything you were doing, and it gave me a whole new perspective on what that business is all about. But I want to go back a little further with that. You have a podcast titled Let Me Save You 25 Years, which has to be filled with a lot of reflection on your part and a lot of things you wish you did differently, perhaps, or did more of or less of. And we all make mistakes. The smartest among us learn from those mistakes by reflecting on them and being honest with ourselves. I guess my first question is, how did you come up with this concept for the book, the podcast of Let Me Save You 25 Years? What was the spark that got that going?
Well, Lovesac is a bit of a saga. We started in the most unlikely manner. It's a side hustle while I was going through college, selling giant beanbags to my friends because I had made myself one. Everyone wanted one. They thought it was cool. We kind of fumbled our way into a factory that we had to build to support a giant order. We opened our first retail store because we had been rejected by all the furniture stores. And then we proceeded to experience every high and extreme low imaginable for any business as we scaled from nothing to now being a publicly traded company on NASDAQ. It's been worth more than $1 billion, employs a few thousand people. So the subtitle for the book is Mistakes, Miracles, and Lessons from the Lovesac Story. And I tried hard to summarize the 25 years. Let me save you 25 years by doing it rather quickly. It's a quick read. I think it's a lot of fun. It's written with a lot of energy. But 25, chapters with 25 little lessons that I've learned the hard way in hopes that maybe you don't have to learn them all the hard way. Perhaps someone can learn from some of the mistakes I made and the lessons I learned from those.
What was the hardest? What was the point where you just said, I can't do this anymore. I just can't make it work?
I mean, I've thought about quitting 1,000 times. The most poignant, of course, would have been during the Chapter 11 bankruptcy turnaround that we had to face in 2006. Having grown too fast, opened too many stores, a bunch of 4-year-olds, like a bunch of idiots running around signing leases. Some were good, some were bad, but our venture capital partners wanted to start over with a clean slate. So it took us through a Chapter 11 reorg. And that's a very tenuous time, because what a lot of people don't understand about that, if you haven't lived it, if you get the chance to manage a company through it, the goal is to get through it. And meanwhile, you've got to run the company. So here you're in headlines on one hand in your local town because you've already been making a big splash as this young up and coming entrepreneurial endeavor exploding on the scene, and then a minute later you're in the headlines in bankruptcy, and meanwhile your stores have to keep making sales to keep the business alive, to help you navigate through maybe a 6-month process so you can get straightened out, repurchased, shed your debt, shed your leases, etc., and keep everyone energized as you're, maybe in my case, running around at midnight, emptying out stores that I had opened just a few months before, cutting fixtures in half with Sawzalls in the parking lot into a dumpster to move on to the next one, while driving sales for Easter or, the 4th of July, take your pick. Those times are just exhausting, to put it mildly. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally. humiliating, even as you're trying to keep that, startup energy going. So, I reflect on this in the book. There's a chapter in the middle somewhere, quit or keep going. And it was my mom who gave me that advice. I was sitting at my kitchen table back, for a night visiting them between all this craziness. I said, look, I've damaged people's lives, their careers. People have lost money on me. My investors are angry. I've got, the Judicial Court of Delaware on my case, wondering, where all the money went, and because that's what happens through those situations. And I just want to, what should I do? What should I do? My parents had never, been startup people. They didn't have any experience. These are deep waters, tens of millions at stake. And I think my mom was a little upset, because it's high stakes and she could tell I was in a lot of pain. And she finally gave me some of the greatest advice in my life. She said, well, the way I see it, you can quit or you can keep going. And I could have just walked away, and perhaps I should have. I think from a logical perspective, I should have. I had lost my equity in the company. I had to start over again. I had to face all this humiliation. And it was uncertain whether I would even be successful. But I think we face these moments every day of our lives. The truth is, for anything, anywhere, all the time, we can quit or we can keep going. It's binary all the time. Even, I think raising our kids, we can sort of give up, or we can, keep fighting the battle, whatever that battle is, or our marriage or our life or job, who knows what. And sometimes there are times to quit certain things. But in this case, I kept going. And I think that the second best advice I got somewhere along the line is tie goes to the runner. When we're faced with those moments where maybe we should quit legitimately, but if it's not certain, you keep going.
So what powered you through? I mean, I like your comment. It is a binary choice, and you don't really fail until you just give up. But there had to be something. I can imagine the mental baggage that you were carrying, going from the high of knowing you invented a product that had good market fit, there was demand, and you got a little bit out over your skis, and next thing you know, you're chopping stuff up in the middle of the night. What powered you through when you made that decision to stay with it? What were you focused on?
Look, I think for anyone to have any level of success at anything, you have to have some degree of grit. It's a fundamental human strength that not all are created equal, but um, most can go a lot further than they think. And one of the things that I've kind of preached along the way, and this is controversial, is to embrace economic pressure. I mean, one of the things that kept me going from the beginning was like, I had borrowed money here, I had to pay it back. I had taken the money from my client to buy the first 30,000 yards of fabric. I'd spent their money. I kind of had to deliver that order. So I had to, beg, borrow, and not steal, but, find my way to build a factory on credit cards. So whether it's practical, back against the wall, no safety net kind of scenario planning, if you want to call it that, which can be very powerful. And to this day, I try to still practice it. I try not to get too comfortable. I don't believe in safety nets. Even now, like all my stock is in Lovesac. I've never gotten liquid in 26 years. Imagine that. It's not good financial advice. But I'll tell you what it does. It puts me in the same place as the people I'm asking to work for me. And it makes me have to succeed. And so here we are on the backside now of like a really tough time for the furniture category, 3 years in a time that's actually a stronger headwind for the home category than 2008, 9, 10, which was a housing-led recession. But post-COVID, there was so much pull forward buying during COVID, so much unnatural behavior and obviously unnatural money pumped into the economy that the home category has been down significantly. Thankfully, we've managed to hang on to our sales growth. We've kept it kind of flat, growing a little bit. but it's been hard. And it forces us to continue to innovate, and we have. And we've had our most successful product launch ever in the recliner recently at Lovesac. We have a lot of new stuff coming. And I don't know that I would have that drive to just keep pushing if I didn't have a combination of grit, economic pressure, intrinsic motivation. So I don't know. It's a combination of all these things, and I think that it's okay to say out loud. It's okay to embrace. It's okay to be aware of the position you're putting yourself in, even as you're putting yourself in it.
I can't disagree with anything you said, and I'm trying to correlate it to my own direct experience and the experience of a lot of financial advisors I've worked with over the years at a pretty high level. And there's some commonalities there. Our brain can take in an enormous amount of information. Most of it we're not even thinking about. It just sits up there, and maybe some of it comes down and maybe some of it doesn't. But we have the ability to focus that. There's a segment of our brain called the reticular activation system, which is really your focus filter. It's like a funnel at the bottom. So we
Hmm.
can take in 11 million bits of information literally per second. Most of it doesn't go anywhere, but we can actively process only 40 to 60 bits per second. We get to decide what that focus is. You
Hmm.
talk about the economic pressure, not having a plan B, no fallback posture. My guess would be that some of your problems may have solved themselves in ways that seem serendipitous, but in retrospect, the ideas seem to be obvious. And that's really our subconscious guiding where our true vision happens to be. I see it with a lot of entrepreneurs. Financial advisors, by our nature, we're entrepreneurial. Most of us start with absolutely zero.
Hmm.
And there's about a 90% fail rate because there isn't that commitment. And the other word, one of my favorite words that you said was grit. You've got to be able to take a punch
Yeah.
and recognize that unless you're seriously attached to something more than where you are, for whatever reason it might be, you're not going to make it, which I think is why most startups fail, why most
Yeah.
advisors fail. So well done.
Thank you. I could add one thing to that, reflecting on it all. Um, Develop the capacity to stay buoyant, stay upbeat, stay optimistic. And it doesn't mean that, 24/7. I have down times, down days, at least half days, try not to have full days. But we wax and we wane in our moods and in our energy. Be aware of it, embrace it, call it what it is, find ways to, in my case, go to a movie, uh, go surfing, ride my motorcycle, do the things I need to do to reset and then wake up early and just get a couple emails in, just get a couple of weights lifted. It's amazing how easy it is to keep going if you can just get the slightest bit of momentum. But developing skills, tactical skills to stay buoyant, stay positive, get positive when you're not. These are things that are not just natural for everyone. And they probably are somewhat natural to more to me than others or something. But don't think that I am immune to, working on these things.
There's a concept that I've always believed in. I call it embracing irrational goals.
Hmm.
That you can set out, in my own case, I set out a very aggressive goal early in my career to do something at a young age at Merrill Lynch, which had rarely been done. And the people I shared it with kind of scoffed at me. Who are you? How dare you say that and this, that, and the other thing. And when I first put the goal out there, it was a 5-year goal. I had no idea how I was going to get it. Zero, none. And then I realized it didn't matter because as long as I kept it important to me and had some track I could follow, you talk about staying buoyant. The ideas just kind of appeared and then something else on top of it. And you look back and you go, how the hell did I do that? And you realize that, you can allow that inactive part of your mind, that subconscious part of your mind to work with you, or it can absolutely kill you. It just depends on what you really think that next thing is. And I think you're a perfect example of that, going through the lowest of the lows and then building something which I think has got a great future to it from everything I can see.
Sure. I know it does. And, you gotta put a little bit of faith into these things that are unexplained, or partially explained. This idea of manifestation, this
Yeah.
idea, have you said, believing in irrational goals? Look, everything I've ever committed to paper, goal wise, uh, we've achieved. And it's fun to show that, in some of our past strategy meetings from 8, 10 years ago, not always on the date, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, but our minds, as you describe, are fundamentally problem-solving devices.
Yes.
That's what they are. And they are more powerful than we're aware of for sure. The subconscious is more powerful than the conscious. And when you have shared goals with many subconscious beings, working on them, uh, they can be achieved. They will be achieved. That's what our minds do. And these serendipitous events, you can call it manifestation, you can call it the secret, you can call it self-help, new age, whatever. But it's very real and powerful. And you have to be willing to try. You have to be willing to accept that and believe in it and then commit to it. And it's amazing what can be accomplished.
I couldn't agree more. I look at your approach to sustainability and permanence, and while furniture would not necessarily fall into the consumer non-durable category, it's more of a consumer durable. The way you approach your stuff is you buy it, it's going to work for life.
Yeah.
Is there a concern or a question that you may never see that customer again, or do you figure they're going to understand that pretty much everything in their home should have your brand on it going forward? What's been your experience with that?
Hopefully more the latter.
Okay.
Look, it's a big world, and we have probably some of the largest market share, maybe the largest market share in sectionals in the United States right now, biggest economy in the world. That said, we're in like 1% of households, not even. So, uh, I'm certain we can go further, even with the singular platform that we mostly are driven by right now, sectionals. At the same time, implicit in your question or statement is the idea that we must innovate. And I love that because we have a point of view on innovation, right? Like through the long arc of Lovesac, the most valuable thing that's come of it is our design for life philosophy, which we were not born with, right? This is something that we emerged over time as we observed why people loved our products because they last so long, but also because can evolve with them. Like this chair I'm sitting in, one of the pieces in this chair is 18 years old.
Hmm.
Some of the pieces are brand new. You wouldn't know that. They're on their 10th set of covers. They're older than my children.
Hmm.
And that's the magic of the platform that we designed. Now, with that magic, things built to last a lifetime and designed to evolve. What else could I rethink through that lens? And by the way, what human can't kind of relate to that? They may not choose us in the end. There's lots of choices, but it's a pretty logical, respectable, desirable value proposition for most people that have a brain. So that's a big marketplace. Most
When
people
you
that have.
came up with your idea to include sound with your product
Yeah,
speakers,
yeah.
I assume, maybe I shouldn't assume, but I assume it could have been a bolt-on to furniture that they'd already purchased from you and just adapted in a different way, or did they have to start from scratch?
What do you think? Your assumption is obvious and correct because we adhere to this as a philosophy. So you can add stealth tech to any sectionals you bought anywhere
Excellent.
along the way. What other product in your life can you do that to when the newest, most technologically driven change comes and you can literally just plug and play it with what you have already and add to it? What company lets you do that? These guys became the biggest company in the world, Apple, by conning you into buying the same thing from them every year.
Yes, absolutely correct.
And with that, consumed all kinds of aluminum and glass and gold and cadmium and arsenic and buried it in African soil because we don't want to bury that stuff here. and have not been forced to innovate. They keep giving me better memojis. They could have cured cancer, man. They could have solved traffic. They could have done all kinds of things with a few hundred billion in retained earnings. But we've allowed them because we've been lulled to sleep by this machine, this planned obsolescence machine that has been in place since like the 1930s as a way to lift us out of the Great Depression instead of just making things like they used to. And so it pisses me off. And my goal in life now is to use Lovesac as the proving ground to show that people can be woken up from this state of madness where we've been conned into just buying more crap that we don't need for reasons that we don't even understand. We're being manipulated by the extreme wealthy to do their bidding and to consume the earth in the process. So it's not even that we're driven by sustainability on its face. It's that this is the right way to do things. It's the most sustain-able way. Like it's actually stuff that can sustain. Who's talking about that? By the way, we recycle more plastic bottles. We use more Reprieve bottles. We're next on the list after Walmart and Amazon. Lovesac is.
Wow.
Why? Because our stuff's huge and we upholster it all in plastic bottles. You probably didn't even know that
No.
because we don't brag much about it because that's like small potatoes. The real thing is trying to convince you to give us your money because our stuff's not cheap before you can even fully appreciate what we've sold you because it'll be 5, 6, 10 years before you've moved 3 times, seen kids go off to college with a couple pieces added to it. We come out with something new like the recliner this year that you can just plug and play with what you have. And all of a sudden you're like, man, that's cool. I like those guys.
Yeah.
What else can they give me? And they're begging for more innovation from this brand that we're creating around this philosophy, which we could only have had we persisted for a few decades before we discovered, this kind of gold. In the meantime, we were just hawking beanbags and clever couches,
The
trying to.
concept of what you did with your self sound, I think, is exemplary of what you're talking about. Um, in retrospect, it's a completely obvious and high utility idea, but I've
Yeah.
never seen anybody do it, especially
Well,
being
no,
able
we
to
invented
pull on
it.
what you've got.
We patented it. It's called Stealth Tech. It's full immersive surround sound. I use it every night of my life. I turn on my TV, it's in play. I don't have to find 3 remotes. It's beautiful, it's crisp, it's no sound quality loss audio. Honestly, I think it's better than most of the 30, 40, $50,000, home theaters you've ever been in. It's right here. Like if this couch had Stealth Tech, I've got front speaker here, rear speaker there. It's tuned perfectly to cut through the foam and fabric. And it's the proximity is untouched. Like it's obviously going to be better than speakers in your ceiling
Sure.
if you can overcome the physical constraints of the foam and fabric and all that, which we do through our tuning process, which we patented. And we're very proud of this invention. And yes, you can add it to pieces you bought many, many years ago. That's a perfect example of design for life at work. There will be more coming, in that realm. And we will continue to innovate in ways that people can't predict.
When you launched that product, did you launch it quietly with your current buyers, or how did you know you were going to get market uptake with that?
No, I mean, so that's another cool thing with Lovesac is we've also along the way morphed the business. We operate more like a CPG brand than we do a furniture company with a merchant. We don't even have a merchant. We have a research team that's constantly doing consumer research. We have an innovation team that's constantly engaging in, unbound R&D. And we lie somewhere in the middle between, being that CPG led, research led marketing organization looking for problems to solve, looking for consumer needs to be met with pure invention. And then of course we go to market in a very strong way. And that's really our two superpowers, invention in the way I described and going to market. We of course we launched with a splash. I mean, it's a couch that will, vibrate your the fillings in your teeth. It's so cool and to experience. And people love it for that reason. So we're going to make a lot of noise on social media and otherwise. And I think Lovesac's very good at that. So look, we masquerade as a cute little beanbag store in the mall called Lovesac that but by the way, we have after Apple and Tiffany's, I think we have the highest sales per square foot in those shopping centers. So we're not joking around, you know. Uh, we have the best selling sectional in the United States of America. So we're not joking around. And we're going to do that again and again and again with new products and new categories. And hopefully, the bigger goal is to make converts out of people that get to experience all these things and come to the conclusion this is a better way to live. What can I do more? And maybe even inspire other businesses to start thinking differently about the crap they make.
So I was just going to get to that. Your traditional competitors, the manufacturers that inhabit the furniture shows out of North Carolina that have probably not innovated since they've opened. What's been their competitive response? Or are they just willing to give up market share, or are you creating new
Well,
market share?
we have tons of copycats and knockoffs. That's the thing that bothers me so badly about knockoffs in the market in general is that it is so easy to look at something like what we created and then go copy it. You literally just put it on a plane to Asia, give it to a factory and say, copy this. They're missing the years of trial and error that went into solving these problems in the ways that we've solved them, both from a construction material standpoint. And that's the reason we issue so many patents and protect our patents really aggressively. On the other hand, look, those companies are innovating in their way. They're merchandising their way to new seasons and new collections. They're off traveling the globe looking for trends and looking for like alpaca fur that can be woven into new rugs or something. And they make beautiful things. I mean, honestly, like there are plenty. We're only number 19 on the list of furniture retailers. But by the way, we're number 19 in the United States selling two products. And most of my competitors sell everything.
Right.
They'll sell you a trash can for your bathroom. So we have all kinds of potential ahead of us. I'm open about how we innovate and how we think and design because I don't think most are going to do it. And frankly, if I'm really honest with the philosophy, I want others to embrace it. It's better for the world. It's a better outcome for everyone. It's harder. When we invent something, it takes years of energy and millions of dollars. It took millions of dollars to bring the recliner for Sactionals to market. It has 650 individual pieces. It's not based on any, components you can source at Leggett and Platt or one of these off-the-shelf guys. If you were trying to build a recliner for a sectional, that's where you'd go. And you take what they have and you'd kind of plug it into yours and you'd be off to the races. It would take you 90 days. In our case, it took 2 or 3 years and million. But now I have a superior recliner that works the deep ways or the long ways. If you understand Sactionals and you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go check out Lovesac to understand what I'm talking about. But it's a recliner you can have the rest of your life, and it's silent and it's beautiful and it sits great and it's invisible and you wouldn't
Right.
even know it's there. And we're super proud of it. And I get to sell it for the next few decades to people that will be asking us not to change the dimensions of Sactionals for the next few decades because they want us to live up to the promise that we made them when they bought it, which is you can add to it and grow it and change it, which
Yeah.
most people don't think they're going to do when they buy it, but they do. We have 40% of our transactions as repeat transactions because of this fact. People come back and they want one cover for one side, and if only you had the same fabric. Of course, we have the same fabric. We never drop our fabrics for this reason. So you can come back and add to it and think how smart they feel when they come
Yeah.
back because everything else in their life makes them feel stupid because they were conned into buying, some model that they can't get the shelf for anymore or whatever. And they just got to buy another one, leave that thing on the curb. And that's just a sucky way to live. And that's the way that most things operate these days. And it
No question.
makes me angry.
So we're 25 years in. You're going to write a letter to yourself 25 years ago with what you were facing. It's not going to be a long letter. What would it say?
Would say, just keep going.
I love it.
There is tremendous power. Unless somehow, again, you can really pay attention to the clues the universe is telling you to take a new direction. And those moments do come in life. But most things, if you want them bad enough, can be achieved by just keeping going. And, you may or may not be the pinnacle, the best, the top in your realm, in your career, in your, whatever it is you're trying to do. But you can achieve it, whatever it is. You can get somewhere. You can make a mark. But most people do not have the stamina. So that's the kind of cool thing about being where I'm at. Look, I won $1 million on TV from Richard Branson when I was 27 years old. Look it up. It's a crazy show called The Rebel Billionaire. It's part of, it's how I raised money. It's a long story. But at that time, I remember thinking, I'll grow Lovesac, I'll sell Lovesac, I'll move on to the next thing, I'll open 4 other businesses. Branson was my mentor. He has hundreds of businesses. And that was my point of view. And I have so many friends who are on their 4th, 5th, they're richer than me and they're more successful than me in many respects. They're flying around on jets, whatever. But I'm doing something that none of them are going to do. We're building a brand that will be a Nike. Lovesac will be an Apple. It will be a Nike. It will be a Tesla. It will be on that board. It will not be compared to the furniture brands that you think of us today as being compared to someday. Just like you don't compare Apple to Compaq or Dell. You did 20, 30 years ago. You don't anymore.
No.
That's not their cohort. Lovesac will be on that board. And listen, if you're listening to this, you don't have to believe me. It's no big deal. Like I sound like a lunatic and it's this beanbag company, but think about what this brand stands for in the world of stuff. And it's an ethos that will resonate with people that have a soul, which is most people. And we will be wildly successful, but only if I'm willing to go another 25 years. And that's what's so cool is I'm at a place where, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, please continue.
Who cares about, whether I'm a decamillionaire, a decimillionaire, a billionaire, a trillionaire? None of that matters, like there's not enough time in life to even, if you're lucky enough to live roughly the way you want to and to, get your family what it needs, try to find a way to enjoy what you're doing if you love what you're doing. And that's my point of view on this. And I think we'll have a path into the billions and that'll be cool too.
That's very cool. Final question. You have kids, right?
I have 4 children.
Good for you. As it relates to grit, nature or nurture?
Both. Every human's born, it's like life is this great graphic equalizer and we are all born with 100 sliders. Some are up, some are down. And in the end, I think it comes out in the wash. We're fairly equal across the board, that is, on a blended basis. But those sliders are sliders. They can be moved, all of them. And we should absolutely be in the constant pursuit of personal development, mentoring our children. We have the responsibility to try to help them develop. And it's the great art. It takes a tremendous amount of energy, focus, determination, resilience, personal management, managing your own ego, managing your own emotions, so that you can coax them to take control of their own sliders and hopefully make weak things become strong and strong things become stronger. And, I think the older I get, the more I realize how many shortcomings and weaknesses I have, and the more I'm fighting against the clock to continue to develop those myself and model those for my kids. And I fail at it every day, but I'm trying.
The derivation of wisdom is the concept of the experience meeting the reflection, which you, my friend, have done in spades. I really want to thank you for joining me today. It's fascinating. I could talk to you for another hour, but I would urge any of our listeners, check out your podcast. Let me save you 25 years. I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to go check out your stealth furniture because we're moving pretty shortly, and I may need a piece or two of that. Shawn, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, and wishing nothing but great success in the future.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This has been Gary Cinderbrand on If the Public Only Knew. Our guest has been Shawn Nelson, CEO of Lovesac. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for checking out If the Public Only Knew with Gary Cinderbrand. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to follow the show and share it with another advisor, investor, or friend. For more on Gary or to check out any links mentioned in the episode, head to the show notes. We'll see you next time.